Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest. Today, we're going to be talking about everything related to Espers, how you might decide what you're going to put them on in terms of your teams, which ones you're going to decide to level, which ones I personally think are the best to invest in right now, and which ones are going to be just a little bit future-proof. So this is a big topic of discussion, everyone, and there is a lot of things to talk about in regards to the Espers, and of course, their various different builds. One of the things that I've been asked a lot recently is how do you choose which Esper is right for which unit, and how do you know, right? And I think a great example of this is that there's like Siren, Ifrit, and there is Titan, all with Pierce attack up. And let's say you're lucky enough to pull all three of those. How do you know which Esper is going to be right for the unit that you chose? And a lot of that is going to depend, right? It's going to depend a lot on what you want your off stats to be and what you want that unit to do. And another very, I would say, less talked about subject is also the Esper stats. Because I think a lot of people don't value the Esper stats high enough, and they don't get talked about when things like Esper agility, when things like Esper AP are absolutely critical, particularly if you're trying to auto specific content or if you're trying to hit certain agility thresholds. So let's talk about the difference between Siren, Ifrit, and Titan. Siren, of course, is going to be known as having very high slash resist. And of course, every unit is going to have different elemental resistances as well. So Siren not only has really high agility, Siren also has slash resistance. Most units in the game are slash attack based, so Siren's going to be really a fast, survivable Esper. Now, if we look at Ifrit, Ifrit has 94 attack. Siren only had 40. Go to Ifrit's training board. Ifrit actually has 7% attack up. Come down here, come up here. Ifrit has missile resistance or ice eater. So Ifrit's really going to be a more offensive pierce attacking unit. He's a little bit slower, but offering that 50 more attack and that attack plus 7% is what he's going to offer. And then you, of course, have Titan, and Titan is going to be offering that Spirit up along with that Pierce attack. So Titan's going to help you resist magic a little bit better, right? He also has that attack plus 7% that Ifrit has, and he has pretty good attack. So basically, Titan and Ifrit are essentially interchangeable, depending on if you want to defend against magic or missile, or if you want to go fully offensive against ice elemental units. And then Siren is going to be kind of universal, moderate attack bonus, pierce attack bonus, and full on slash resist. In a situation where you have limited Esper choices and you have a pierce unit, any one of those Espers is going to be a good choice for that pierce unit. And let's be clear, when we're talking about what Esper is right, there's going to be a variety of answers that anybody can give you, right? And I think a lot of times people talk about Odin as like the perfect Esper that's better than almost any other Esper. And that's, for the most part, true. And, you know, Odin might be better, but maybe you don't have Odin leveled, or maybe you don't fully have him. So any of these units are good. Just looking at their Esper board, though, and knowing what you have access to quickly is going to be really important. I think another thing players don't think about as well quite often is that it's going to take a long time to max out these ability boards, right? People don't just come in and all of a sudden, like, we have an Esper and they're maxed, right? Like, it takes a long time. Even if you've received a lot of Hiroki's gifts over the last couple months, it's still going to take a long time. So I look at things like close nodes in order to understand kind of what the immediate gain is for my unit, particularly if I'm not going to be maxing out that Esper. I think a great example of this is with Ochu. And Ochu is one of those Espers that I think is, you know, pretty well thought of. But I think Ochu also has a really high return on investment for very minimal investment, right? Because when you come to Ochu, you immediately have access to magic up 15% right here. And That's a lot of magic. And if you are maybe someone who doesn't have a magic Esper yet that you fully want to invest in, it might be worth it getting these magic plus 15% on your Ochu and throwing it on a magic character. So there's also Espers like that out there. Now, there's probably a lot of people who are asking, well, Dr. Diggs, what about Malboro? What about Cactar? Like, what Espers are traps and which Espers are not traps? And I think really you could make a case for any Esper. However, I went ahead and I favorited a couple that I think should be a priority no matter what. And I'll go ahead and walk through why I think these Espers are priorities. Now, Odin, of course, should be your top foremost priority. One, he's the Esper with the highest agility in the game. This is critical, particularly if you're trying to auto something or you care about live PvP. Having high agility is very important. Having access to Maneater, critical for Arena and critical for a lot of the content in the game. He also has access to slash attack up and attack up. However, you can spec him defensively for missile resistance and slash resistance, along with Maneater if you really want to as well. There's a lot of different things you can do with him, and he really is the cream of the crop in terms of Espers, and I would highly recommend just using him in general. And I'll give you a great example of my most recently using him in the raid. And that example pertains to Cain. And this is just one example where you need Cain to move before the two-headed dragon does, because Cain will use Ziza's bells if his agility is high enough. With Wind Spear, which is agility plus 5, and Ziza's bells, which also has agility on it, Cain is not fast enough to move before the two-headed dragon. Even if I put Siren on him, he's not going to move before two-headed dragon. However, I can put Odin on him, and in slot 1, that enables me to fully auto Cain, and that gets him a turn before the two-headed dragon. So this is an example of how Esper stats are really important, particularly Esper agility. Now, Odin, of course, might not be the best offensive choice for me, right? But in that situation, agility was far more important to me than actually using Odin's main attributes. Now, a lot of these other Espers are on here because of their weapon modification. For example, Shiva and Diablos are both on here because they modify magic attack, and they're very good at that. I think you could invest in either one of these, and it would be a good choice. Diablos, of course, is going to have just a little bit more magic than Shiva does, but Shiva also has that +4 agility. Diablos also has access to Light Eater and TP up, and I believe Shiva does not have TP up here. Let's go ahead and hop in on her board and look. She also has a little bit less magic. Her magic up's a little bit more accessible than Diablos's, but she also has access to Pierce Resist and Wind Eater and Magic Attack up. But both of them are going to be really good. Meanwhile, we also have other magical Espers like Rama, and we also have Soul Flayer or Mind Flayer. They're both good. So is Ochu. I just think if you're looking at the cream of the crop, it would probably be Shiva and Diablos. Now, if we are looking at limited time Espers, I do just want to throw out Red Chocobo. I think Red Chocobo is one of the most underestimated Espers in the game, and you would do well to pick him up the next time there's a Final Fantasy Tactics event going on. He has really high agility, really good stats, and his board gives him a quick access to attack up. It gives him Dark Eater up, slash attack up. It also gives him dark resistance and missile resistance if you need it. I just think he's an all-around good Esper, and I actually feel like he's better than Two-Headed Dragon. I know a lot of people really like Two-Headed Dragon. Personally, I don't like Two-Headed Dragon because he's such a slow Esper that I feel like I run into walls when I use Two-Headed Dragon. Now, in terms of the Pierce Espers, we do have Siren and we have Titan here. I think both of them are good. I think Ifrit's good. Honestly, any of the Pierce Espers are going to be great. The reason I have Titan and Siren here is because Siren, of course, has really high slash resistance and high agility, making her kind of like buku bang for her buck. And then Titan is one of the only units, actually he's the only Esper, that adds Spirit up for your individual units. So that makes him very unique. Behemoth, when we're looking at the lower rarity Espers, I struggle to make a case for a lot of those Espers because base stats are really important to me. They're almost just as important as modification of weapons and attacks, but I think there's a couple that stand out to me. One of them is going to be Behemoth, and we call Behemoth Behemoth for a reason, right? For those of you that remember when I first started playing, Behemoth was the first Esper that I ever fully maxed, and Behemoth is the Esper that actually carried me for a long time. And besides my sentimental attachment to Behemoth, Behemoth also has very high agility. Behemoth also has access to a lot of attack up on her board. She gets access to Light Eater / attack up. You can see I've actually been speccing my Bay for Light Eater because I've been running I've been running the raid, so I've been using a lot of these Espers. So yeah, I would definitely shout out Behemoth at any time. Another Esper that I think would be really good that's sort of on the lower tier rarity would be Iron Giant. The big drawback with Iron Giant is the agility, but the base stats of Iron Giant when they're fully level 80 is actually pretty substantial and pretty meaty. So definitely check this out as well. If you're new to the game and you maybe don't have a lot of the UR Espers, definitely check out Cactuar as well. I think Cactuar is very underestimated. You can see I have my Cactuar 2-star, level 80. Cactuar is going to be one of the Espers that does get access to 3-star immediately in JP when it comes out. And Cactuar is going to be really good for your mages. Notice he has 70 magic here. His agility is only 11, but if you're a newer player, you're not going to be able to max out your Espers, and you might not even have a really good magical Esper. Now, the reason Cactuar is a really unique unit in terms of Espers is Cactuar has access to Magic Up, Magic Attack Up, Cactuar has access to TP Up, Cactuar has access to Man-Eater. Cactuar is one of the only Espers that has access to extremely high critical hit rate. Cactuar is a very unique Esper, and there's very few Espers that actually compare and do what Cactuar does, and I think that's what sets it apart. If you're really hurting for like a physical damage Esper and you have to use one of the lower rarity Espers, I would recommend the Bomb Esper just because that also has some pretty powerful modifications on it, and I would say he's not the worst choice. You could definitely do worse in my opinion. The last category of Esper I would recommend are Espers like Fenrir and Espers like Golem. And what Golem and Fenrir really bring is survivability and damage. So Golem is one of two Espers, the other being War Mech, that does add defense up to your unit. And there are not a lot of Espers that add defense up, so this is really valuable. Golem also adds Man-Eater as well. And for a long time, one of the strategies for Ayaka was to actually put Golem on Ayaka so that Ayaka could survive a hit, so that your healers would not die in one blow. So Golem has had like a storied history of being on healers, on tanks, on DPS because of the Man-Eater and the high health. There's a whole history of Golem. So I think Golem is almost a universal Esper that you could make a case for on any unit except for like a magic attacking unit. Fenrir I think is unique because Fenrir is the first UR Esper that does have magic resistance associated with his stats, which is very powerful. He also has ready access to attack up and slash attack up, making him overall pretty powerful for the majority of units in the game. Magic resistance can be found on some other Espers like Malboro, but I really don't feel like Malboro is worth the investment, just in terms of the stats and in terms of the ability board. I can even show you guys how bad it is. I really am not a huge fan of Malboro. Not a huge fan of Zoo either. Lamia, I mean, no, I would stay away from Flowdie. A lot of people make the case for Flowdie, and I just have never seen it. Whenever I think about Flowdie, I just think like, what on earth are you doing? Flowdie, maybe that's mean. Flowdie does give some missile attack. He gives some pierce resistance, some fire resistance, some magic up. A lot of people have touted Flowdie as like a Rosa Esper or as a Fina Esper, and you're not wrong. That, you know, he would be reasonable for either of those units. I just think you're going to find it much better to lean more heavily on one side with one of these units, whether you're leaning into magic or you're leaning into offense, just because I feel like the hybrid-esque Espers never really succeed, right? Whenever you're running units, the hybrid units never succeed unless you're running them one way or the other. In terms of like quick shout-outs for Espers, I think are moderate. I think Demon Wall's a little bit of a unique Esper, and I would encourage you to level him, but I don't think he's like the end-all be-all. I think he's really good for specific purposes, and I think maybe in the top 5 guild meta, he's going to be very relevant. I think I could see him being relevant with Yuna coming out as well, giving some light eaters, some light resistance. So we might actually see Demon Wall become more relevant in the future. He's definitely a defensive Esper, and I would just, if you're newer and leveling your Espers, I would stay away from him just because you're going to get less use out of him, and he's very niche, I feel like. Let's see here. What else do I want to talk about? Anything? No, I think that's pretty much it. I think I hit most of the notes I wanted to talk about. I feel like I made it pretty clear what Espers I would invest in, what to look for. And again, I would always look for the agility on your Espers. Oh, I guess I should talk about leveling your Espers too if you are a new player. If you're a new player coming in, level 1 Esper all the way to 80, or maybe take 3 Espers to 2-star and then start leveling 1 to 80, 1 to 80, 1 to 80. Don't try and level them all the time. That is a mistake. Big mistake. Don't be doing that. All right, everyone. Well, you made it through the video. If you made it this far, leave a comment down below. As always, if you are looking to support me, please use my affiliate link. Cut myself off, y'all. Have a good day.